Hi everyone, I'm Tali, this is Farrell and we're bored of it, and today we're reviewing Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, which is for 1 to 4 players.
Yes, this is actually a cooperative trick-taking game in the style of games like The Crew, where you're all trying to complete certain objectives, and if you all do them within that one round, you kind of win that round and you move on to the next round, mission, adventure, chapter in this case. So before we get to how you play and what we think, please note we were provided this by the publisher for review. Lord of the Rings, the trick-taking game, is, unsurprisingly, a trick-taking game. And that means it follows the basic rules that one player will play a card of a certain suit, and all other players then have to play a card of that suit if they have one. Otherwise, they can play whatever they want. Now, you have shadow, mountains, hills, forests, and rings as your kind of 5 suits in this game. And the ring suit is where things get a little bit spicy, because you can't actually lead with a rings card until someone has been able to get a rings card into a trick, and then it's kind of open to lead with it. And you have this nice token here to represent when that occurs, and then everyone can see now you can lead with a ring. How the game gets a little bit more interesting than that is you play it over chapters. And each chapter you'll have a selection of characters to pick from. Now, generally, whoever is dealt the one ring, because all of the cards in the deck are dealt evenly amongst the players, whoever has the one ring will take Frodo, and they have to play as Frodo. Otherwise, there might be certain characters who must be selected, but you'll often have kind of some leeway in who you pick or don't pick. And each character essentially has a special setup element, such as Frodo begins the game leading the first trick, or they will all have some sort of requirement, such as Frodo needs to win a certain number of rings cards to complete his kind of mission, you could say. Gandalf might need to win 1 or more tricks. Certain other people might need to win all cards of a certain suit or a certain number card of a certain suit, things like this. And as this is a cooperative game, you will win that chapter if all players complete their characters' objectives. You'll fail if 1 or more players do not reach their characters' objectives or fail them by the time that you've played all the cards the players have. Then, once you've completed the chapter, you'll move on and you'll generally be introduced to new characters with new objectives. And later in the game, things will get a bit more complicated, where you might have kind of restrictions on how you can play, or you might have events that alter how the normal game flow goes. And there will be 18 chapters in this game to play through, at which point you can kind of play kind of loosely created chapters of your own making with certain characters. That is Lord of the Rings, the trick-taking game, and how to play. Lord of the Rings, the trick-taking game, was, I believe for both of us, a very unexpected, pleasant surprise. Mm-hmm. I think went into reviewing this just based on the fact that it had good word of mouth. I like Lord of the Rings, thought, why not give it a go? We also have some friends who we see regularly that are also big fans, so I thought I could at least play it with them.
Yeah.
But actually what has ended up happening is we've just played it 2-player continuously over the last weekend.
Yeah.
And
racked up quite a lot of games, actually.
Yeah.
Got a bit addictive.
I think even in the 2-player version, where you kind of have a third player with some cards revealed, some cards not revealed, but you can only play certain ones at certain times, it works really well. Yeah. And we just both really enjoyed ourselves. I think it's even more interesting because I've seen a lot of talk about how, they say it's basically, this is very similar to The Crew. It's like The Crew if you really like the crew, then you probably will prefer the crew to this and all this stuff. And we played the crew an amount, and I don't think we were like crazy about it. We didn't dislike it, but I definitely have much preferred this, and I was really surprised by how engaging we both found it.
Yeah, I agree. I guess it's an interesting one because there's not so much like twist to it in a way.
But especially after playing like Skull King, right?
Exactly, yeah. I was just thinking we've had a bit of an abundance of plays of kind of trick-taking games lately, with Skull King being very competitive, this being cooperative.
Yeah, it's very straight-laced.
Yeah, it is straight-laced, so it's kind of hard to put your finger on why it's enjoyable. I guess it's just the puzzles that you need to solve. So everyone has a different objective depending on what character they play, and you can kind of pick your character after you see what your hand is. So maybe that's the twist. It's just, working kind of with what you have in the best way. And some of the objectives might be to only win one trick out of the whole round, or it could be that you can't lead with a certain card. So it's kind of interesting to try and manifest that and make that happen with what you have. But also, of course, you working with other people and you can't talk about what you have. So that's the added twist, I guess, is like making these very specific objectives, but also then having to work together without being able to speak to each other. And it's like very satisfying when you manage to do it, I think.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the kind of enjoyment for me at least comes from.
Yeah, I think, for some reason I just find this more satisfying than playing the crew. And I think we've always, when we've completed a chapter, kind of high-fived at the end of it because it feels like a job well done. And it's not even necessarily that it's a particularly hard game. Definitely, I think we've ended up losing more at the crew because sometimes just the way the cards are dealt in the crew, you're stuck. I think that's maybe one part of what I like here, or I think it's better designed in certain ways, that it's never felt like the cards were being dealt have tanked the chapter because you pick what character you are. And it might be like dicey based on what you have, but you have that flexibility. Yeah. Okay. And I think it's always felt challenging, but we've mostly, it was very rare we actually didn't complete something.
Yeah, we didn't have to restart very often at all, actually. Yeah, I think you're right. There's enough tenseness, let's say, in there that each chapter is a bit of a challenge to complete based on what you have, but it's not so challenging that it's just deflating and you have to keep starting again. Yeah, at least that's how our games been. Maybe we're just really good at it, but that keeps it to be quite engaging. Like that balance between challenging but satisfying is really hitting the mark, I would say.
So I think one interesting thing about this as well is that it's almost like a campaign trick taker because you're playing in chapters and each one is adding new characters. And usually you only see them one time, so it's not like things are being added on. But there are certain elements that are added in, so that make it more complex. Like we got to a certain point in our last chapter where they're essentially saying, okay, you have this character who you've played before and you know what they're trying to do, but now they have a restriction that they can't lead a trick with the card or the suit they're trying to get, which then is really spicy and adds a little twist in. And I've just really enjoyed how they've played around with what people can and can't do and how it combines. Like we've had some very tricky rounds to navigate, and it's just always been, as you said, a really interesting puzzle for us, even at 2-player, to navigate. And I really have enjoyed progressing, and I'm looking forward to progressing further.
Yeah, it's even interesting to decide who the kind of fake third player character should be as well, because you have to consider, it's tricky because you can see some of the cards that are available, there's only a handful available, you can see maybe what they have maybe in the kind of final era of each round, but some of them are hidden. So what character is best for them to be versus what should you be? But there's obviously like hidden information there. So even that initial part of every round of like picking the character is very interesting. And then obviously you need to make the right decisions in order to complete the objectives. But what do you think about it as a huge Lord of the Rings stan? Because I do not care about Lord of the Rings. and I still really enjoy this. So this is definitely independent of the theme, I would say.
Yeah, I think I actually really, so it's one of my favorite things that I'd like to give a shout out to about this game is I think the production slaps. It's gone like so hard when it really didn't need to. It could have been like a crappy little box with some cards. And the production is like so top notch. Like, you know, this ring token. I thought it was going to be like a little cardboard pop out and you get like this nice weighty ring. I think the art is terrific on everything.
Holographic box.
Holographic box. I think like the packaging of like these little things here where like keeps like all the kind of secret campaign goodies. Not that it's that exciting. Hidden away. I absolutely kind of love the production, but also I love the touches that it puts in. So there's a lot of characters that are only from the books. I just think like, you know, it is in some ways a little bit themeless, like it could be anything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think they've incorporated some things really nicely into the characters. And also, I love that the one ring can kind of win any trick. I think that's kind of like a smart way to
make it a bit thematic.
Thematic,
way,
but also I think that's a very simple thing that allows you as a player a lot of leeway into completing these tasks. Having this like one card that, you know, you can stop someone from winning a trick they shouldn't, or you can like win something you'd never be able to. I think it gives a lot of variability.
That's true.
So I really like that element.
Yeah.
I think it's just really interesting in how they alter the gameplay chapter to chapter, the core rules of it, and just something really enjoyed.
Yeah, but you definitely don't need to be a Lord of the Rings fan to enjoy this game.
No, and I think one thing I'd like to point out just before I kind of wrap up is I've seen like some comments being like, because it's kind of a campaign and you have like the 18 chapters, you know, is there much desire to play it after? And I'm not sure how much there would be. I mean, there is like, they do specify ways you can kind of, you know, kind of have a more randomized version. But what I would say is we've completed 9 chapters and we've spent a lot of time playing, and we've only really, I think, failed or struggled with 1 chapter out of those 9. So it's not like we've been stuck and getting a lot. We've been like marching through it, but we also have spent a lot of time on it. And so I think you get a lot of content as well in this box. So even if you did complete it and you say, well, I've seen it now, I'm done with it, I think it's certainly worth picking up, even if that was the case.
Yeah.
I just think you can get a lot out of this and play for a long time.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, we've been playing 2-player with third Fate player, but we're going to also play it with friends and do the kind of team game with 4 players.
Yeah.
So that is another opportunity to kind of go through it again with a new lens, I think.
Yeah. But just to wrap up, I would say, for my part, it's a wholehearted recommendation. I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would, considering now we have kind of 2 trick takers we really love, but generally fairly tepid on trick takers, and I just really enjoy this and the puzzle, and I look forward to playing the rest of it.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah, no different comments.
Lack of Schmeagol/Gollum so far. I'd like to see them make an appearance.
No, you'll have to wait for the sequel, The Two Towers.
My favourite character.
Oh no, maybe you'll see them later on. Actually, you might see them towards the end.
Big fan. Said I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan, but yeah, love me the Gollum.
Love you the Gollum. Gollum and Baby Yoda, the 2 IP properties that you love.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so that was our review of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, the trick-taking game. And please consider subscribing if you found this helpful. Please ask us any questions you might have about the game, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.